Hey everyone, today we're going to be doing another quiz as the first quiz was so well received. So for today it's going to be a mid to late game quiz for playmakers. This is going to be a tricky one as in the mid to late game there are a lot more variables than the early game, and playmakers as a class, they want to inject volatility and embrace chaos. But with that said, I'm going to be discussing everything thoroughly. I want to preface this quiz by saying that the playmakers, they are Bard, Thresh, Pike, maybe Blitz. And the Playmaker class, they generally want to avoid handshaking in a 5v5, and they want to use their kit for generating numbers advantages and for finding picks. But I don't want to give too much away because I want you guys to think of the answers by yourselves. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So for the first game here, this is a student of mine that is playing Thresh. And the question I want you guys to think about is, how are we going to play for the upcoming dragon? You guys can see the state of the game here. So the first option, should we play for mid prio into river control, into getting dragon? Should we play for bot prio into river control, into getting dragon? Should we play to immediately enter and control river and then do dragon? Or do you guys think that playing for dragon is a trap here and we should do something else? The more you invest into these questions and really thinking about the answers, the more you can take from this type of video. So I really do encourage you guys to pause the video and really give a think about what you think the best play is. Okay, so we're going to be moving on to the discussion now. So let's start with the playing for bot prio into river control. So if we choose to do bot prio into river control here, first of all, the Lucian is already at bot wave and we don't have any members nearby to get bot prio and then move into the river to control for dragon. The second point is bot prio should be plan B. You would rather get mid prio, you would rather pressure the middle of the map and then translate that to here. And so I don't think this is a pressuring enough situation for us to just reject mid and go straight to bot. Let's talk about immediately entering and controlling river. So you guys might initially think that this is a bait answer, that you would never choose this, but you actually would choose this if the dragon is about to spawn and you don't have time to control either lane and then transition that into the dragon. However, the dragon is about a minute away. And another reason why we wouldn't want to just immediately enter and control river and neglect the lanes is there is, a pushing wave here that we have to collect and deal with, and we can't just let this wave push in and, the Yorick potentially damage our tier 2 mid tower. Also, the way that the enemy is positioning, we see their Yasuo top, we see their Lucian bot. It's not likely that they're organized in the river right now to be able to just one-shot the dragon. And so we're not under as much pressure to just immediately enter and try to contest. So for the next option, the dragon is a trap. I don't think that we are in a situation to neglect the dragon. We have a very fed jungle. Our Katarina isn't that far behind, and all of our members are kind of gravitating towards dragon anyway. Maybe if we were really far behind, or if someone was really chunked, or if we had dead members, then we would have to give dragon. But this is not a situation that strikes me as having to give up dragon. And this is just amplified by the fact that their Lucian is bot and the Yasuo is top, giving us space with which to control this area how we want. Okay, and we're saving the best decision for last, so playing for mid prio into river control. So the reason that we want to play for mid here is because the middle of the map gives us the most options with which to translate that pressure to, and also mid waves meet first on the map, so you can translate that pressure to another place easier than from the side to mid. And our champion really enjoys getting picks around mid. Thresh and Blitz, they love making sure that this area is in fog of war and then finding those hooks as the enemy looks to contest. And once again, just because of the way that we see the Yasuo on the side, we see the Lucian on the side, this gives us a lot of agency with which to play through mid and then to control the river. Now, I understand that we don't have a mid wave here, and so what we would be looking to do is just clear this wave as a team, and then potentially we could drop someone's trinket around here or at least start to control this area. Ideally, we have a mid wave to work with. So the best answer in this is probably going to be a mixture between controlling for mid and just immediately entering and controlling river. But the reason I included this example is because of the playmaker's identity wanting to look for number advantages or wanting to create a pick. And when we see the enemy spread out like this, we need to recognize what that opens up as a possibility for us to force a pick. And so they're showing on the sides, we can control this area, we can shove out or at least clear their wave, and then we can be decisive around this area. If Lucian looks to group up, then we can pick him. If the enemy team walks anywhere around here, then we look to jump on them. And so this is a fantastic opportunity to avoid just a handshake 5v5 front to back, which playmakers are going to struggle with, especially versus a great scaling enchanter like Zillion. So let's have a look at what actually happens. And this is going to be a lack of embracing a playmaker's identity and finding those number advantages and looking for those picks. As we've said about 100 times, Lucian is split off from the team, so any type of fight that we can decisively take around here is exactly playing into our identity as a playmaker. And so what needs to happen here is we just need to ping a lot and look to aggressively, find a pick here. Pressuring around here will also give us the added benefit of being able to get mid-prio and then moving into Dragon. And so we failed to recognize that the enemy team was out of position here and that, Katarina loves skirmishing. We have a Fed Echo who can easily clean up here. We want to find an engage here. We missed this opportunity, and we are still looking for an opportunity to find a pick around here. This is not a bad idea. Just the execution is a little bit off. And so we do end up getting the Dragon. Just noticed how now we have lost control of the middle of the map. And now we're going to lose a mid-wave to our mid-tower, and we can't really do much on the map after we have gotten Dragon because we didn't play through mid first on that window. So jumping back to the start of this clip, if there were a situation where the enemy team is grouped up around mid, then maybe we can't play through mid first and then we would look to enter through a side or wait until an enemy shows on the side and then look to pick him. Okay, so for the next game, it's from the perspective of Bard, and I want to just play out around 30 seconds leading up to where I want to ask the question. So they get our mid tower. We have our numbers on bot side. They evidently are putting their numbers towards top side. I think it's safe to deduce that they have their numbers top side. They're looking to do Herald. And so the question is, what's next? What is the next objective? Is it top outer turret? Is it mid outer turret? Is it Dragon spawning in 1 minute and 40 seconds? Or is it bot inner turret? Just as a reference to how the game is panning out, you can see the champions, scores and items here. So pause the video, have a think, and I'll see you soon. So in my mid to late game guide, I'm going to link it in the description below. For the macro element, I briefly talked about what's next and what you should think about in terms of deciding what is next. And what I said is that it should go outers, and then neutrals, and then inners. So let's start with assessing mid-outer. Obviously this is a very important tower to take, but it is the hardest outer to take. And since we lose Herald, it's going to be hard to just Herald mid and get the tower. So playing for mid-outer, it's a very hard tower to siege, and especially because they already have mid-tower advantage. So it's going to be awkward for us to reliably get mid-prio even. Let's talk about the next option, so Dragon. It is spawning in 1 minute and 40 seconds, so that is quite far away. We could make an argument to play for Dragon, but again, this isn't the most important Dragon. They aren't stacking up to a Dragon Soul win condition. We're also pretty far from the Dragon Soul win condition. So I'm not convinced that we should put all of our eggs into the stacking Dragons basket right now, especially if we can't achieve anything leading up to the Dragon. Meanwhile, if we're investing our numbers towards the bot side of the map, it's going to be very hard to siege the bot inner tower, while we might lose mid-prio, and then if they heralds our mid-inner or our top inner, the game's going to get very awkward very quickly. So I'm not a fan of the playing for Dragon here. So for the next option, playing for bot inner, again, this is a very hard tower to siege. If you cannot get mid-prio, we're down a mid-tower. And so if we ever put numbers down here, they can easily just shove mid and then start to collapse on us, and then we're going to lose mid-wave and the game is going to get very messy very quickly. So that leaves the option for what we should look to do next being top outer. And this kind of ties into the Playmakers identity as well. Playmakers, they generally don't want to put too much emphasis on mid because their kits are designed to be mobile and to look for picks and create number advantages. And that's harder to do around mid because it's the middle of the map and everyone is just inherently closer together. So it ties into our identity, it ties into what's next in terms of an outer tower, and it also ties into mid being really hard to play for in this situation because we don't have a mid tower. And so what we should look to do realistically is sack mid-prio, play for top outer, and then look to be mobile, embrace chaos, inject volatility, and look for these picks as Bard. So just picture this scenario happening. We have the Seraphine just passively collecting waves 1v2 back here. We have our Syndra actively pushing top, playing for top tower, and meanwhile we have the rest of our members, especially Bard and Viego, playing between mid and top and looking for any type of picks around the jungle here, looking for chaotic skirmishes. And Urgot, he isn't pressured to be bot right now either. The wave is way out here, so he has a lot of time to pressure with the team to set up vision, to potentially play for top tower, then eventually he can base and come back bot. Okay, so let's say we're on the same page in terms of playing for top outer. I briefly mentioned the lane assignments already. We would want Syndra by the objective. We don't want to put Syndra on the weak side of the map. She is immobile. She needs to be played towards. She needs resources. And so it should be Syndra here. Urgot potentially grouping up with a team and then eventually moving back to collect bot on weak side. However, what ends up happening is we don't correctly identify exactly what we want to play on this window, and we don't get the correct lane assignments out, and so now our ergot is on the side of the map where we want to try to control towards, and our Seraphine is kind of in no man's land, and we're kind of posturing around mid, although it's very unlikely to be able to do anything around here. And so the lane assignments are very messy here. It is not clear what we are playing towards, and it's kind of suggesting that we want to play for dragon, but again, not being able to control mid reliably, especially for the wave before dragon. Also, our identity is looking to create number advantages and picks, and also if you look at the enemy team, this is a terrifying team to kind of handshake a 5v5 front to back with without any mid prio. And so what ends up happening is we have Bard on this side of the map playing towards Syndra, but not really setting up an objective, and then we have Viego on this side of the map, and then this top wave is going to go to waste, and now we're hanging around mid, and there's nothing we can achieve around mid, and so our whole window of proactivity, of playing for something, of identifying what's next is just gone, and it's going to be a tricky part of the game now. So this is a long-winded way of saying that you should ask yourself what's next and make sure you're thinking about it as the lane assignments are coming out of base. I'll just play a little bit more. So we lose mid-wave, we're hovering around, we're achieving nothing. Our immobile mage mid Syndra is left stranded, no one's playing towards her, she just kind of gets one shot and the game is just in a horrible position. Okay, so the next example, it's actually a game from myself and I am playing Bard. The question I want you guys to think about is, where should we path from base here? Should we path towards top? Should we path towards mid? Should we path towards bot? Pause the video, have a think, this is going to be a tricky one, and I will see you guys soon. So the reason that this is a tricky one is because there is no easy objectives left to play towards, right? We have all of their altars down. Baron is spawning, so we're not just going to do Baron. Dragon is ages away, and so we're not necessarily going to be playing for what the next objective is. We just want to think about how to pressure the map the most appropriately in this window. It's going to be tricky to pressure around top, and so we don't really want to pass towards top. Obviously, we have no one around top right now. Our Darius just is coming out of base, and our vision is more so tailored towards the bottom side of the map. So pathing top doesn't really make much sense here. Let's talk about pathing mid. And so pathing mid is a pretty good option because, you know, we have the mid tower advantage. We do get to potentially generate mid prio and then move towards a side. However, playmakers and especially bards, they don't generally want to pressure too much around mid because you can't really look for number advantaged fights as we've talked about on the middle of the map. I would rather look to move towards the side of the map and look to use my E and use my R and find those long range picks and be really mobile and embrace the chaos. Let's talk about the last option, pathing bot. And so we have a really fed jungle. We also have a really accelerated mid laner. He is pushing bots. We have our vision set up here. And so this is kind of tying into our identity, right? We want to be able to move towards the side and look for picks there. And so ideally what happens here is we play around bot here. So maybe we can collect this wave coming mid with our Jhin and then translate bot, or just immediately run bot as Bard, as Elise, and play around our fed side laner. Although the reason that this could be awkward, that potentially gives them the opportunity to control the top side of the river and to potentially pick up this tower as a bounty goal. This might actually be a lane assignment issue. And so even though we're paused right now and I'm trying to think of the best situation, it's tough, right? We want to play towards our Yone. We don't want to necessarily give them the bounty over here. And we want our support and our jungle to link up and create chaos. Instead, what happens is I'm looking to path towards this side, and then my jungler is pathing and is pressuring on this side of the map. And so I'm kind of hanging around on bot and potentially looking to move towards bot and dive. If someone does show up here, this is what I want to do. However, it is evident that they're not sending anyone bot, and my jungler is topside, and they have an active wave over here. And so I can't really achieve my identity right now. And that's okay. Sometimes it's not about the absolute best play at every situation. It's about making an acceptable decision in the chaos. And so I recognize that we can't realistically pressure around bot anymore because they're sacking bot wave. My jungler is topside, and we don't really have a mid wave to work with right now. So I'm just going to group up with my jungler in fog and accept that that is the best that I can do in this situation. Given that our mid laner did shove out bot, and now our mid laner has move and can potentially collapse on a fight around here, this is not the worst situation for us as a team to be in. And so that is exactly what happens. I can't use my kit. I can't play the full playmaker identity on this window, but you can't have everything in life. You can't have everything in League. And so we're just going to have to make do and perform as well as we can in this skirmish, in this situation. And so I'm happy with accepting either pathing mid or pathing bot, or pathing between mid and bot. I just wanted to include this example to show that it's not always going to be self-evident. You want to be thinking and you want to be adaptive to whatever is happening in the game. And also the last couple of examples have kind of shown how important it is to consider what's next and to play appropriately for those lane assignments. And if there's not a clear objective to play next for, then you want to at least prevent what the enemy would want to do, right? And so around this situation, I should be telling the Yone to come top and the Darius to come bot. And then we can keep control of top river. Maybe we can look for a window on Baron because we're so fed, and we can prevent them from getting top outer and collecting the bounty. All right, we've saved the best for last. It is another Bard game from me. And the question for this game, how do we want to pressure the map? What is our win con? And so I really want you guys to think about what the best way to pressure the map is. Should we look to play towards Riven and create picks in her lane? Should we look to play towards Karthus and find picks in his lane? Should we use Riven's side prio to group and fight around mid with number advantage? Or should we look to stack and play for neutrals? Have a think about it. Pause the video and I'll see you soon. Okay, so let's discuss playing towards the Karthus' side first. And the reason that I don't like this one is because Karthus' identity is not finding picks in the side lane. He wants to be really efficient, farm up, get items, and then press R. He really struggles to provide much or lock down anyone in his side. The next option we're going to discuss is using Riven's side priority to group and fight mid with number advantage. And obviously our Riven is very fed and she can generate side prio. The question is just, do we want to allow her to get that side prio and then move mid, or should we instead move towards her? Now, the reason that I don't like using Riven's side prio to move towards mid is for a couple of reasons. And the most important reason is that it is not in line with the Playmaker's identity. We don't really want to look for picks on mid. And it's a tricky task to ask for our team to just run forwards, through the Silas, through the Ashe, through the Brand to try and find a pick here. And especially because our win condition is Riven. So if Riven gets side prio and then moves mid and then tries to run through Ashe W's, through Brand spells, it's just going to feel and look really awkward, which we will see an example of soon. So there will be some situations where you do want to bring your side laner towards mid, look to ARAM, look to, force prio, set up objectives, or look for picks. This game is not one of those situations. And this is going to require a little bit more thinking about the comps. What is Ashe Brand good at? What is Ashe Brand bad at? They're both immobile, they both have some range, and so they're really going to struggle to move at all around the map. But if they just get to, sit in a front to back in an ARAM, they're going to be able to do quite a lot. And so everything is starting to point towards, really embracing the Playmaker's identity and looking to pressure on the side of the map rather than the middle, and look to use your mobility and force picks. In terms of stacking and playing for neutrals, as we can see, they already have Infernal Dragon, and so that's not a realistic win condition for us at all. Baron is not spawning in the near future, so we're going to have to come up with a little bit more of a sophisticated way to pressure the map, which is going to be creating picks towards our win condition using our Playmaker's identity. And so that leaves the best option for last, creating picks on Riven's side of the map. So what we should do is we should just plop Ezreal in the middle of the map. He can Q farm, and all the meanwhile, Bard and Volibear is linking up and looking to create picks on the side, and especially towards Riven's side. All the meanwhile, the Ashe and Bard are going to be kind of stuck towards mid, and if they try to roam, and we are already roaming and controlling an area, it can be very easy to pick them off in their transit between lanes. So let's take a look at what ends up happening. And once again, it's not always going to play out exactly how you want. Sometimes you're going to have to adapt in the moment and embrace the chaos. And so what happens is we're shoving mid, and we're starting to move towards top side of the map, but then we see a Talon jump on us, and all the meanwhile, our Riven is getting a solo kill here, so we could have ideally been playing towards the Riven. However, this is how the cookie crumbles, and we notice Urgot on the side of the map, and so I am pinging for, trying to create a pick on the side and not to move away from it, because this whole game, the team was very, stubborn in terms of playing anywhere away from mid. And so I really had to start taking control of the comms. And so I'm looking to use my mobility. Their Ashe and Brand is kind of just stuck. It's going to be very hard for them to, catch up to a play like this. And so we can just see what happens here quickly. We find a pick onto the Urgot. Eventually the enemy team gets to follow up, but now they're in a pretty disorganized situation and they can't really play how they want to. And, we get some picks and we start to be able to control the map finally. I want to show you how awkward it does look if we choose that option of, bringing Riven towards mid instead of looking to play towards her. So Riven is trying to play towards mid despite my best communications. And she's just awkwardly hovering here, hoping that they horribly miss position. We don't really get priority on the mid wave. Still just awkwardly hanging around here. And our giant fed win condition is just not pressuring the map whatsoever, right? If the Riven was here, actively forcing them to try and react to pressure here, and then we can actually play the map and create some pressure. Right now, we're just reacting to the enemy. And they are keeping our fed Riven at arm's length with Ashe W's, with brand spells, and so it's just a very awkward situation to be in. All the meanwhile, I do not want to ult, because if I just try and ult, you know, the brand or the Ashe, then the rest of my team has to try and run through all of their zoning and peeling tools, and our champions do not have the hardest engage either, right? We would rather press Karthus R to find a pick on the side, you know, use our volley bear to, you know, dive towers on the side. Just trying to run straight through this Ashe, this brand, is going to be very tricky. So we're just going to have a look at a little bit more of this situation. We're losing mid prio. I can't really do much with my ult. My Riven is trying to assassinate the backline, but it's front to back, it's in mid lane, it's not really going to achieve anything. And this whole situation is just coming down to, you know, assessing what your win con is, how you want to pressure the map. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed and you learned something. I just want to say that we can easily add in Pyke to any of those situations and come to the same conclusions. Blitz might be a slightly different story, but he is a hard champ to classify, and that is for another time. Please consider liking and subscribing, but only if you enjoyed the content. As usual, the links to private coaching to improve on your gameplay and mentality, the link to my School of Support Discord server, and my Patreon for educational content and for School of Support coaching. The links are all going to be in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and goodbye.